to order the regular meeting of the Tonganoxie USD 464 Board of Education for Monday, August 14th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we need to make a couple of amendments to the agenda. We need to add Cody Witt for a quick high school report as item 1.4. Push Aaron to 1.5 and school improvement to 1.6. And then we need to remove action item 5.4 for additional discussion later on. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Same sign, motion carried. All right, so with that, we'll move to reports. Number 1.4, Cody.
Well, good evening. Really, I don't have much of a report as I am here to help answer any questions about CTE and some of our staffing shortages this year. And so I'm here to just be available to answer any questions that may have come up recently about plans going into this school year being short a few of our CTE teachers.
So I think the big question in my mind is just help us understand how many, I know you and I talked a little bit, but kind of high level, how many kids we're talking about?
So that's a difficult question to answer, to be honest. And I actually was trying to share a spreadsheet. Did it come through? Sorry. So we did pull those numbers today. So currently, if we're looking at freshmen through seniors, well, I guess let me clarify. There's two different ways of looking at this. Are we looking at kids that are not able to complete a pathway, or are we looking at kids that we're not able to enroll in a course? Because those are two separate questions.
So I think the completion of the pathway is the more concerning one.
So in terms of, is that gonna share? In terms of completion of a pathway, we are looking at less than 10, and I'd have to go back and look at the total number, but probably less than 5 that are not able to be completers or concentrators in a pathway by KSDE guidelines. Now, what I just pulled up is something we ran today in terms of number of students that were not able to get a course that they wanted, which is a much larger number.
Yeah. So is there also opportunity to earn dollars from the pathways and CTE programs?
So
is there a loss of revenue potentially?
Well, I don't know how that plays out because we also don't have teacher salaries in those positions that we're not paying. So in terms of loss of revenue, I don't know how you would figure that out right now. But yes, so any student that is enrolled in a course that's being offered that is not at the introductory level, so either at the technical or application level, then we do get funding, extended funding from the state for students enrolled in CTE classes at the application or technical level.
So then the courses that we can't fill because lack of staff, is there a substantial amount of dollars that we're missing out on?
Not necessarily, because you're not paying 3 salaries.
Right.
So I think it's not a huge loss, no.
And I would agree with that, Chris. It's a waiting for each of those students. And then some of the classes, I'm just asking, some of the classes that we are using, are they able to be used as a pathway, like the business?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so we picked up some waiting on kids that are enrolled in some of those classes. I mean, so
Right.
there was a little bit of a trade-off, just not as many as.
So potentially there's money, whether I agree or not agree, of lost revenue because of teachers. But do we also have a situation where we've spent a lot of money upgrading the welding center that we don't have an instructor for now? So that seems like a waste to me.
No,
No, we have a
Still offer
we have an
welding?
ag teacher. Yeah.
And
have two
we're gonna
ag
offer
teachers.
all
We have-
the same programs.
So this year the shortage would be, so I don't know the exact, we're offering 2 intro to ags this year, whereas last year we had 3. They do a welding unit, a 9-week welding unit intro to ag. We are offering an ag welding 1 this year, and we are nesting kids inside of that. That'll be enrolled in ag welding 2, but that's just 1 class period. Whereas last year we would have had, I believe, 2 different class periods of ag welding 1 and then an extra class period of ag welding 2.
So then are kids missing an opportunity to get into?
Yeah. I mean, yes. So ag fabrication was a class that we had last year, but this year we had 0 students actually request that class. And I don't know if you can see that. That's line number 11 there. And then going down to those next 3 lines. So ag welding, we had 16 kids request that going into this year. All 16 of those kids were able to get into that class. Ag welding 2, we had 16 kids request it, but only 4 were able to get into ag welding 2. So there are 12 students that were not able to get into ag welding 2.
Is that because there wasn't space or just scheduling conflicts?
That was because we went from 1 ag teacher to 2, and so we were not able to offer another course of it.
okay.
And so ultimately what we're doing is those 4 students for ag welding 2 that are in it were actually a part of an application process of sorts. Students that had some prior teacher recommendation, performed well in ag welding 1, were always had no behavior concerns. Those 4 students have been allowed to nest inside of ag welding 1. So what that means is the hour that we are offering ag welding 1, those students will also be in there and will be allowed to work on their more advanced projects while the class is in ag welding 1.
How do you end up with a -6?
So that negative is actually, we have more students that have ended up in that class than actually requested it. And that's the thing. So Justin, you asked a question at the beginning, how many students have been impacted by this? Part of the reason that that's difficult to really give a finite number on
We got them in something else.
is, say what?
Because we got them in something else.
Right, because they ended up in something else, because a lot of these numbers are based on pre-enrollment, which was last November, late last November, early last December. Interests change, kids come back and want their schedules changed. Some kids can't get in a class not because it wouldn't have worked and we didn't offer it, but because they also want to be in debate and band at the same time, or trig pre-calc, these singletons within our schedule that then limit other course offerings. Because you have to be in, like, let's say trig pre-calc 3rd hour. Well, if that's the only hour that we offer ag welding 2, it's not that you couldn't have been in ag welding 2, but you told us you were going to take trig pre-calc no matter what. Well, now there's a conflict in your schedule and you can't take ag welding 2. So that's part of why it's difficult to really put your finger on a number. If you go back up, like line item 4 there, 3D art, 102 kids, and we have both of our art teachers, the same art teachers we had last year. 102 kids requested that, only 73 were able to be placed, so we have 29 students that requested that were not able to get into that class. That's not a staffing issue, that's just a, well, I guess you could call it a staffing issue, but
It's not a new staff.
we have X amount of teachers and X amount of courses that we can offer during the day.
The teachers were short. It's not because we didn't try to hire some. It's
Correct.
We can't fill a position. I mean, you can advertise.
Right. I don't know all of the details if we want to get into it, but we have put a lot of effort into finding additional teachers. And to date, we have had, I guess one thing I will share, to date we have had 0 industrial arts applicants. And that includes me calling people and recruiting them and trying to get them to leave schools they're at.
And you said there hasn't been a lot of pushback from kids or parents.
So it's always interesting, right? Because I know you guys have heard things. I have had a couple parents that are heavily involved in FFA that spoke to me last spring, early summer. Hey, and more just updates. Where are we at? Can you fill me in? What's the plan? And I communicated with those parents, and I felt like I had a good open line of communication with them, and they understood where we were at. to date, I have not had a parent reach out to me and say, why can't my kid get FACS classes? Why don't we have a teacher? Or why can't my kid get industrial arts classes because we don't have it, why haven't you hired a teacher? I have not had any parents reach out to me upset about it. I'm not saying there aren't parents that don't want their kids in those classes, but
Yep.
I have not been flooded with any complaints.
So do we know if there's any students going to another district because they can't get the classes here that they want?
No one has said that to me. Again, I don't know,
Okay.
but no one has said that to me, that they are leaving because of that. So, and we are able, there are some upper level courses that we are not able to offer this year, and some of that goes back to being hopeful that we can fill those positions going into next year. And so we're still trying to build up a base of students that are taking entry level courses so we can continue to build those programs up and not lose that. But we are really still able to offer, FACS is impacted heavily because we don't have a FACS teacher at all. We are allowing, Megan Carlton is coming up to teach 2 hours at the high school first and second semester from the middle school, so that's helping us out to still offer culinary essentials and human growth and development. Mr. Falgren is actually teaching an hour of residential carpentry for us, so we can still offer an hour of residential carpentry first and second semester. So again, we can at least get young students that have an interest into our shop and build some skills so that they at least know if they'd want to go into tech school later on for something like that. And then really on the ag side, again, there's like an ag leadership, or no, we are offering ag leadership. It's really more the depth of classes that we are offering. Are we offering as many ag welding 2 classes or as many horticulture classes? And we've had to trim those back because we don't have 2 teachers.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
You have peers running into the same problems?
Have who?
Peers, other schools?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, yes is the simple answer to that. And it kind of depends on the school. I mean, it's not always CTE for every school. I mean, I know schools in our league that had science positions posted for 7 months and never had an applicant. And so we have been able to fill those positions, but we have struggled, of course, with the 3 that we're talking about. On the FACS side, we did actually have, I interviewed 4 different FACS teachers and tried to hire 3 of them. And for various reasons, it just did not work out each time. But industrial arts has been tough with, like I said, with no applicants. And then in ag, we had 1 applicant that we felt good about. And so, yeah.
So I assume we keep those positions open, or are we just
Yeah.
scrap the program?
No, I mean, unless you guys tell me to do that, but no, I mean, as of right now, those are still, the way I view it, those are still 3 FTE that I have available to hire. And, I had someone ask me about it this morning, and I said I would have it, if I had a good ag teacher apply today, I would interview them and try to hire them as quickly as possible. And if they can't start until next Monday, then that's what we would do. But
So there's still opportunity.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. If I get a good ag teacher or industrial arts or FACS and they want to start 2 weeks into the school year, we'll find a way to make it happen if they're worthy of being hired. But
Are there any classes? I mean, I know the welding is like 16 spots. There's a +4 there, and
Right.
have a strategy. Are there other classes that have more than, are having to absorb the students and are over capacity?
yes, naturally. And so there are some things that we did going into this school year. One thing happened naturally, another was in a response to this. And so we did hire a second business teacher this year because we were at a point late in the spring where we knew it was not looking good for these 3 positions. And we had a teacher at the middle school that had a degree in business and was very interested in teaching business. And so he moved up to the high school, and we added a whole another teacher's load of business classes, which have all filled up, and we knew they would. And so we've added that. Another part to this is we had a PE teacher that was half-time middle school, half-time high school, that went full-time middle school to fulfill elective needs down there that they were having. And so we were able to hire a full-time PE teacher at the high school to replace them. And so with that, gaining that half a PE teacher, we also video productions. Last year, our video productions course load that teacher was halftime video productions, halftime PE. They have taken on some credit recovery responsibilities that, Mr. Padfield had, but he has come over here to the alt school. And so we have gained, instead of halftime video productions, we now have a full-time video productions caseload, which is filled up. And so I don't know if you're tracking me through all that, but we have essentially, for the 3 FTE that we are missing for the CTE classes, we've actually gained 2 FTE worth of caseloads or course loads for teachers. And so we are down 1 teacher's worth of courses. And so those other 2 have picked up the slack.
Okay.
Did that make sense? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it
I'm
did make
kind of
sense.
speaking in master schedule admin tongue there, but that's
No,
what
that
we've
makes
done.
sense.
So the 5 students that are not going to be able to complete their pathway, have they been spoken to and they figured out a schedule they're happy with?
So, to be honest with you, that's also kind of an interesting dynamic. There are probably a decent amount of students that complete a pathway and really have no idea that they completed a pathway. They were just taking courses that they were interested in. And so that is something that we track on the KSDE side. Some students are very intent on completing a pathway and moving into that field. We have spoken to students that weren't able to enroll in classes that they wanted to and explain to them why and help them get a schedule that they want. But I have not had anybody reach out to me and say, my kid can't complete a pathway, what are we going to do about it?
I was just asking because I know sometimes if you don't offer a class, that the high school has offered independent study
Yes.
for those situations. I didn't know if that was
We would. I
Right.
mean, if someone came to us, I mean, again, like, I think Lauren shared a spreadsheet with you guys maybe a week ago that, last week, that Jody Smith put together, our post-secondary coordinator. And she would even note in there, like, some of the kids that are not completing pathways, they are in a restaurant management pathway because they took some FACS classes as a freshman and maybe as a sophomore, but didn't take any of those classes as a junior and didn't request to take any of those classes as a senior, but they're still counted as kids that didn't complete a pathway because that's what they fell into. They quit taking those classes because they lost interest in it. But so they're counted as non-completers, but if you ask that kid, they were never trying to complete that. KSD requires us to place every kid in a pathway, even if their goal is simply to not really take that many CTE classes and just become college bound and take upper level science and math. So.
Okay, Cody, thank you. I know that this probably felt like an inquisition. It didn't mean to. It's important, and clearly you guys have been working hard to hire. I think Lauren talked about coming back in September, and maybe we can put our heads together in terms of other ideas or other resources that would help us be even more successful next year on the hiring front. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, good.
All right, 1.5, Aaron, on project update.
Thanks. Having a bit of a Monday and left my computer at home, so thanks for the help. All right, so feel a little bit weird following that with an update on the CTE construction, but it does look really great, and it is finished. So I'll kind of run through the highlights here. From a budget standpoint, we're really good. I'm waiting on one late change order from BHS, adding some protective bollards and painting around the new mechanical equipment back there in the yard so nobody accidentally runs into it. So that is kind of reflected here in this forecasted contingency, but obviously wrap things up in a good position there. Have completed all of the punch lists and the owner training. Really just stuck to owner training on the new mechanical equipment and welding, as everything else was really similar to what was done in the high school project. AV and FF&E. So KCAV was on site today to do some final commissioning. I know I just talked to Forrest. We've got a few punch list items to kind of get all that up and running correctly, but it is all in and done. Furniture has been punched out and is all in place. So, couple photos here if you haven't been over with the furniture and the exhaust and everything around there. So, yeah, really not much there. In regards to the overall bond project, just share with you guys, we did get McCown Gordon's final closeout invoice, which was sent through for approval and payment and returning the savings from them on their GMP, and that did end up being actually a little bit more than we were anticipating. So they returned about $800,000 to the district. So with that, I expect BHS's final invoice here at the end of August, and I have started kind of going through doing a true up of the whole budget, the bond budget with this project and the main project to kind of say here's where the final savings of the overall bond is at, but it is tracking in line with the previous estimates that have been shared to the board. So that's really all I had. So I will come back next month with that kind of closeout information and talk through all that. But I think we're pretty well wrapped up. So,
Lot of green. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 1.6. Brandy was going to do an introductory presentation on school improvement services.
Hello. Good evening, all. I'm Brandy Taylor. I'm the new director of School Improvement Services. I've met some of you, so you look very familiar. Good evening. Nice to meet everybody else. I called this the layer between the principals and the teachers. And I feel like that's kind of a really good way for people who aren't necessarily operating within school systems to look at instructional coaches, because that truly is the layer between administration and teachers. Just myself working as both a teacher and a principal, having that extra layer there is key. Just like in any class that I would teach, just like in any modeling I would do, I have our essential question and our success criteria. What are the goals and initiatives? Our success criteria is the learner will understand the role of the instructional coaches and what data will be collected and the initiatives. So why instructional coaches? Because administrators do not have the time to do it all. We also, when we look at it from the point of view from a principal, it's very it's more summative. It's not something where I'm able to check in on this person and work with them and be regular with them. It's very difficult to do in the day. If you're in a school, many things can come up. So we want to make sure that our routine check-ins are done regularly. So we have we want to make sure that walkthroughs are not observations and that observations are not walkthroughs. An observation is something that a principal would do as an evaluation. They are looking for key things on a rubric identified, in this case for Tonganoxie, is the Greenbush evaluation for teachers. When teachers have a principal in their classroom, those things that a principal is looking at can be used for their evaluation. Things that I see as an instructional coach, things that my instructional coaches see are not the same. They would not be something that I would go and talk with my principals about unless it was, a fire, an emergency, something we really need to address at that moment. So it's a non-evaluative way to enhance, build, or polish teaching at the tier 1 level. And I'll talk about the tiers in just a moment. But we need to remember, everybody has coaches. The best people have coaches. Tiger Woods had a coach. Michael Jordan had a coach. Like LeBron James still has a coach. Coaches are there because they serve a purpose. So an instructional coach works with teachers to improve the quality of their lessons and the quality of students' education. They serve as mentors and role models, helping teachers stay fresh and use the latest techniques and technologies in their classrooms. It's a partnership. And when I say that we're working together to foster our professional growth, it's because I'm still learning from my teachers all the time. And anything that I see that could be applicable in another room, I'm going to run and I'm going to tell somebody else about it. And that's kind of my job as an instructional coach, is making sure that I'm kind of allocating those resources, getting those people connected to where they need to be connected to. If I have a teacher that is struggling with X, Y, or Z, but I know just across the building we have a teacher who is phenomenal at X, Y, or Z, I need to do my thing to connect those individuals. I need to get them into classroom observations. I need to set them up as kind of a role model situation in that case. So our team is comprised of myself, and then we have the 2 instructional coaches that we've hired. So I will be working as the Director of School Improvement Services, the instructional coach at the middle school, and the instructional coach at the high school. And then we have 2 instructional coaches right now at the elementary school, which is Chris Sties. She has experience in admin. She's had years of teaching as a math and reading title teacher at the elementary level. And then Amanda Albert. You guys probably know Amanda Albert. She's a Tongi grad. She's been here teaching in the classroom for the past 12 years, I believe, just in kindergarten. And so she is very focused on Tongi, and she is pouring herself into these teachers. So far, it's been a really solid team with our experiences. My experiences, I'm coming to you guys from Topeka was where my first job was. I worked there for right around 10 years. I was the 6th grade, 8th grade, ELA, social studies, department chair, team leader at both grade levels. I pretty much did everything. BLT, we did all the trainings there. And then I moved into a reading interventionist position, later an academic interventionist here in Lawrence at USD 497, and then I was promoted to assistant principal there. This is our mission. We have been working with Greenbush, partnering with them on some coaching for our coaches. What we have here is our mission and our core values. The mission is to partner with, support, educate, and empower others in order to achieve and celebrate success. Our values are sustainability, goal orientation, collaboration. We are data-driven, and accountability is a key piece for us. So we have 3 goals. We need to increase rigor and academic achievement through the use and promotion of universally designed instruction, high-impact instructional practices, and professional learning communities. We need to celebrate and communicate with our staff. We need to be transparent. We need to really reinforce all of the amazing things that are going on. We need to make sure that they know that they're being seen. And then we need to establish our coaches as the go-to for tier instruction at the first level. And the key part there being we need to build relationships with them, which means we need to be visible and available to them when they need help in their classrooms. We are not somebody who sits behind desks. That's not the job of an instructional coach. An instructional coach is in room after room after room, basically working with those people side by side as they are beckoned to or as we are needed, and then going and getting those individuals those resources that they may be lacking and things that they didn't think of, or an option that would be another thing for them to think about. So our goal 1, increasing rigor and academic achievement, we are doing this kind of in, like it says, 3 different pathways. The universally designed lessons, it's a way of thinking about teaching and learning that gives all students equal opportunities to succeed. So we have inclusive classrooms in public schools in the United States, and that means that we have students who are English language learners as well as students with IEPs. And those students, as well as all of our Gen Ed students, all have different varying learning styles. The UDI or UDL is a way to really manage your students in a way that allows everybody to have access. So you're going to give them the same materials or the same material in different ways. So if I am giving a lecture with notes, I might also reinforce with a video. I might also have readings. I might also do a comic strip. I might also have peer-to-peer. I might also have a peer mentor. I might have any manner of different ways, and that's all housed under that. So just making sure that our teachers become aware of these. Gradual release is a really big part of this, and that's where, as a teacher, it's the I do, and then it's the we do. We have the to do, so 2 individuals working together, and then the you do it solo. Our next piece that's helping us to work on and polish our rigor and academic achievement is going to be our professional learning communities. These are the 4 questions that basically guide all professional learning communities. You are sitting down with your like partners and saying, What do we want all students to be able to do? What can I not let my students leave 6th grade without knowing? I need to make sure that this information is with them. How will they learn it? I need to have that scripted. I need to know the way that I'm going to get that information to them. How will we respond when some students do not learn? So that is tier 1 still at this level. And then how will we extend the learning for students who are already proficient? And then we have the high impact instructional practices. These are, it's about 12 different strategies that we are looking at because of their effect size. Anything above or at a 0.4 or above would be blue for John Hattie. And that's where you're gonna see at least a year's expected growth within those. When you see something that says 0.75 or 0.88 or 1.20, it's because when we look at the research surrounding this, it is showing that those students are gaining more than a year's worth of growth in that time. I have teacher clarity underlined and bolded because that is our very first high impact instructional practice that we're really going to focus on. And that is because we have just had training from Greenbush that really, really hit that hard. They understand the need for that as well. And then we also had our professional learning communities, it's called PLC Plus, come from Corwin, and they basically had the exact same message. It's very easy to see that this is something that's easy for teachers, it's palatable, it's teacher clarity. It's what are you wanting your students to learn? So Hattie had originally 252 influences on student achievement. I think it's up to like 305 or 306 right now. They're all in 6 different areas: the student, the home, the school, the curricula, the teacher, the classroom, and teaching and learning approaches. That's not to say that he didn't have anything in there about instructional coaches. He was still very new when he was doing this information. But we do know that instructional coaches, because the teacher is the most impactful, we know that those instructional coaches are having an impact. It's just right now in the research, it's hard to kind of tease out those pieces. One thing I wanted to get all of you to have get your hands on is the same thing that I handed out to all of the teachers at New Teacher Orientation this year. This is my favorite piece of paper. It's our influences on student achievement. And you can see that it's categorized in the different areas. And then on the back, you can also see that you have the different things that the teacher does have control over. So we know that a teacher does not have control over a student's home life, where they are from, what they had been doing in their early years of education. But these on the other side are the things that we do have control over. You can see the blues are the things that we would want to spend our time on. You can see that the greens are things that we should probably be moving more away from. Things in the yellow and red are things that when I see it in a classroom, that might be a question that I have for a teacher. Why are we still using this practice? And if they've got the data to back it up, I'm all about it. But if not, we're gonna check right here and we're gonna find an instructional practice that is supported by research. We're gonna model it, we're gonna work with them, try to give them some different options. So what this means for us is we need to make sure that we're looking at our practices through the correct lens. We need to make sure that we don't do things in a classroom simply because they're comfortable, or it's something that we saw our high school teacher doing when we were 18 years old. Pedagogy is a craft. It's something that you can't just be. It's something that you develop over time, but these strategies are things that you can implement and make your own. Classroom discussion is a 0.82, right? But it's only a 0.82 if you actually utilize the feedback that it's providing. So if I am saying, okay, let's talk about it, guys, and we have a classroom discussion, but then I didn't take into account that those 3 people said absolutely nothing. This person said lots of things, but it was incorrect and off topic. These 3 people knew exactly what they were talking about. That's what we need to be doing with this as teachers, is taking into consideration, these are the practices we need to be doing, and then here's this other piece of it. What's successful? So John Hattie says live in the blue. We've got to live in the blue. We've got to get away from things that we do simply because we've done them. Our goal 2, celebrate and communicate. We are looking to integrate celebrations into meeting protocol. We're trying to invest in some incentives, looking at a budget for incentives, trying to normalize incentivizing really good teaching and just saying, hey, I see you doing this amazing thing in class. Let's all celebrate. Let's take a picture. Let's let everybody see. Teaching can be a really lonely profession. I can say the first 7 years of my class, if I didn't invite somebody in, they weren't coming in unless it was a scheduled observation. And it changed when I got a principal who said, we open our doors. Everyone should be in. Not just your instructional coaches, other teachers as well. And that's part of ours as well. So just establishing those communication norms, making sure that you guys are also getting regular progress on our goals, talking with our teams more about our data, and actually having protocols to look at our data and saying, okay, here is the data, what are we doing with the data? Goal 3, this is that piece of tiers that I had referenced earlier. Tier 1 should reach 80% of your students. Your entire class is 100%. I'm going to teach with my Tier 1 strategies, and 80% of students should be proficient when I'm giving them some sort of a formative or even a summative. There's 15% of students who need to have some time where we really chunk and chew, slow things down, process a little bit differently, maybe even hear it from a different voice. And then there's the Tier 3 students who need a one-on-one. That should be about 5% of your school. And so there's 3 different layers in any classroom all the time. And good teaching really points out those layers. Those formatives, the summatives to some extent. But our formatives is what's going to give us the really good pulse on learning in a classroom. We have already begun to establish a resource bank. So we already have a Google site that's going to have our instructional playbook, which will be 1-pagers of those high impact instructional practices. And then it's also got websites. For instance, the elementary school, we need decodables. So I've been reaching out to people. What do you got that's free and available? We've got websites on there with free decodables for the year of 2023, 2024. Because people know that right now we are at a place where we either are going to shift these kids and get them back on track, or this pandemic thing is going to keep being a pandemic thing. And I feel like we are ready to shift. We are looking to provide professional development as needed. Our elementary teachers, because they are doing the CKLA and because they have letters training, they were not able to get the high impact instructional practices. So myself and the instructional coaches will be going into their PLCs and giving them small bites of that exact same thing that we got, so that they get to see and have modeled for them the exact same high impact instructional strategies. We're making sure that their formatives are effective. We're going to see, yes, you're asking this question, but is it aligned with your standard? Let's look at the standards. I'll be attending those PLCs and then adjusting and establishing different systems. For instance, what is the best writing strategy? When the kids come to middle school, do they have the tools from elementary school? Are the tools that they're going to get in middle school going to be those things that they're going to be able to carry with them to high school? Or is this really stuttered? We're doing something in elementary school, something different in middle school that has nothing to do with high school, and then we're on to high school. We've got to figure out where are our practices, where are our strategies. We've already kind of talked with individuals on care teams about streamlining the SIT process, which is our student intervention team. So we're trying to make it so it's easier to talk about those Tier 2 and Tier 3 students and make sure that those students are receiving the support that they need. We're going to assist with those learning walks that I talked about, opening our doors in our classroom, making sure that if I have a teacher who needs to see another social studies teacher, but their plan time is the exact same time, so of course they wouldn't be able to do it on their plan time, I'm going to cover their class for them. I'm going to cover it so that they know that they can go and watch this teacher so that they can learn X, Y, or Z. And then in October, we will have received our training from Jim Knight. It's a 5-day training, and that's when we'll begin to establish our coaching cycles. The fact that it's not until October is actually something that I think is beneficial to us, because I don't think we want to come in and start coaching cycles, right away. We need to ease into it because a relationship and trust is a really big part of coaching. One really interesting piece is we need to make sure that we are not interventionists, that we're not substitute teachers, that we are not a librarian, that we are coaching, that we are working with teachers on teaching. The data from the Dynamic Learning Project shows that full-time coaches can typically work with an average of 9 teachers at a time. Right now we have 20 new teachers at the elementary school, 10 at the high school, and 2 at the middle school. That's a lot. And within that, nested within those, there's 9 brand new teachers at the elementary school. You guys know this. Like 4 at the high school, 2 at the middle school. That's a lot. That's a lot. So making sure that we have those individuals supported is a really big part of teacher retention. When a teacher has just their bachelor's degree and not a big toolkit, it can be pretty intimidating to walk into classrooms and say, okay, we're gonna do this, except for I don't have the strategies to do that, and I can't change it for you. Here are my amazing instructional coaches. They were just being amazing people because the elementary school is having their back to school night tonight. And so they are doing triple duty, I guess. So we have developed an indicator checklist for our walkthrough tool, which actually combines our key points from our Greenbush rubric, which is what all our teachers are actually evaluated with. It's basically what is good teaching, UDL points, and then admin on what they think qualities of effective teaching looks like as well, and kind of combined all of those together. In August, we'll be doing a lot of classroom visits to establish routines, be visible and helpful. We will be using a couple different tools. We're gonna be having our primary tool, which is the tool that we are gonna use that we talked about. It's our checklist, right? But then we are also gonna be focusing in, for instance, on teacher clarity, where we will be chatting with, I'm hoping, something like 50 kids, like every other week, to ask them questions about teacher clarity. We can't say that our kids know because I told them. They know. This is social studies. Of course they know that we're learning history. They don't. They don't. And remember, they just had 7 other classes before that. So it's really nice to have a roadmap. And so my goal with those is to say, you know, in our first rounds, what are you learning about? And they should be able to tell me that. Or point to somewhere in the room that says, this is what I'm doing. This is my success criteria. Once we're at 80% with that, once I have 80% of kids who, in all classrooms, are able to tell me this is what I'm learning, now I'm gonna ask 2 questions. Now I'm gonna say, okay, why is it important? When I've got 80% of kids who are able to tell me what they're learning and why it's important, then we can ask them a 3rd question. And that 3rd question would be, okay, how do you know when you're successful? These kids should be able to tell me all of those things. It shouldn't be a surprise. It's not a secret to them. We should have that data. We should be able to get there. So we'll kind of look at these high impact instructional strategies just like that, where we're really focusing in on one at a time. When we get really good at it, that's when we're able to move on to the next. Are we gonna just not teach them those other ones? No, that's not true. I'm still going to walk through all of these strategies with them, but we're really gonna focus in. I just don't want to overwhelm those teachers who have way too much or way too little. We don't need to overwhelm anybody, but I want to make sure that they have some tools, some strategies. And I've already talked about the 5 to 10 minute piece and the coaching cycles as well. So this is what a coaching cycle looks like. This is what we'll be doing on a regular basis. But a key point is that we are not evaluators. We're not a mole for the administration. The conversations that we have with our teachers are confidential, and their purpose is to help work with teachers and bring them to the next level. That's all that I have for you, unless you guys would like to come up and introduce yourselves.
So we came all the way here. We might as well. Hello. How's it going, guys? So I'm Amanda Albert. I've been in the district. I actually grew up here. I'm a product of Tonganoxie and have been lucky enough to teach here. This is my 12th year in the district. I've been in kindergarten primarily, but now I'm excited to be a coach. So.
And I'm Chris Stice. I wish I could say that I grew up in Tonganoxie because I've lived in Tongi for almost 2.5 years now. I've been officially with the district since I was hired in the springtime, late spring, early summer. And I have been in many districts, none compared to Tonganoxie. And I've been in giant districts like El Paso, Texas, Denver, Colorado. I've been in tiny districts like Buhler, Kansas. You guys are beyond the others, and I have an interesting perspective, and I have felt extremely welcome. I'm super excited about what we're going to engage in, and the support from staff and community is unlike any other. So I feel very much a part of the Tongi family. I appreciate that, and I'm very grateful to be here. So thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I think you touched a little bit on it, but I didn't know if you had established any, ways to measure the progress. It sounds like formative is a big part of that. Are there other ways that you're measuring the progress throughout, in real time through the year, or is it primarily on the formative assessment side, or?
So the formatives are something that could be daily information or weekly by unit, but then also we have summative, which would be like the MAP testing that we would do, so we would look at that as well. And that's just on student growth and achievement. And then if we also look on the flip side of that, just teachers and just looking at how many strategies that we've got going, how many times we've met that 80% completion, things like that, that will also demonstrate.
Yeah. The other question I had is is there any interface with your team, you and your team, and the parents, or is it really just, working behind the scenes with the teachers?
I'd say we are much more behind the scenes
Okay.
with the teachers, much more. Yeah.
I have a couple questions. How are you talked about evaluating the teacher's effectiveness and helping coach them along. How are you evaluating your effectiveness and the instructional coach effectiveness?
So how we evaluate I would say that it will probably come to our logs and our goals. So we're going to have instructional coaching logs, which will demonstrate who we've been with, how long, what classes, who we've been assisting and helping with. But then also just that other piece, which is what have we done in terms of our goals and our progress and monitoring based on those 3 goals that we showed you up there. But
okay. And then PLCs, when you go into PLC, the teacher should be looking at data. Are you going to look at that data prior to the PLC so you have some ability to give them feedback, or is that something that you're going to go into the PLC with them and listen and let them? How will that work?
So for the most part, the PLC framework is based on formatives. So we wouldn't have access to their formatives beforehand unless they were to.
Well, you would have map data, or you would have something.
That's a summative, and that's something that we would definitely have access to prior to.
Well, the PLC should be looking at both formative and summative data.
Yep. But we only get summative 3 times a year, so it's a lot more based on the formatives.
Okay. And are you going to do any type of teacher survey to evaluate your effectiveness? Have you already planned that, or is that something that'll be throughout the year, get feedback from them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've already put out one survey just to get kind of feedback on things that they might want little help with, things like that. And then we also, just like when I was with my students, doing it probably 3 or 4 times a year, just saying, hey, what's going on? How much help do you need? Just really simple, quick, so we're not taking up a lot of teachers' time, but just getting really key information. How much help do you need? How much help have you received? Simple questions like that. But yeah, we plan to do that probably 3 or 4 times a year. Like I said, I don't think that the one that we did this time would be our first, so it'll probably be another one on top of that. So when I say 3, it'll probably be 5.
And what if you have teacher resistance? What's your plan if you have any teacher resistance?
So there is always going to be teacher resistance. I mean, they're adults, and andragogy shows us that the best way to work with people who are resistant is to really just continue to work with them, but in a way that's not all up in there. So for instance, instead of working directly with this teacher who is very resistant, I would be working with her teammates, for instance, and hopefully it would get back to them how amazing it is. But there's also other things that we can do, things like just during our walkthroughs, giving them little hints, little feedback. You're amazing, thank you. I really like your seating charts. But then also there's things like ghost walks, where I can observe your classroom and look for some of those things that I want to see, their success criteria, their learning targets, their word walls. I want to see that stuff too, so we can do that in a ghost walk when there's not even any students or teachers in the classroom. We have a lot of different strategies like that Greenbush is helping us work with, just to make sure that we are covering our bases, because it's true, there are definitely going to be people who don't think they need a coach, don't want a coach, don't trust us, don't know us. And so we want to make sure that we are definitely respecting everybody and where they're at in their personal immediate. But we're not going to give up. We'll just do it in a different way.
And I think it's really important that all of you have good instructional coach training too. Have you already had some, and what are the plans for like continued instructional coach trainings?
So we've already had one session with Greenbush, and we will continue. We have a total of 10 throughout the year, so it's almost monthly, a little bit extra. And then we have that 5-day coaching in October with Jim Knight, who's basically the inventor of instructional coaching.
And have all of you had PLC training?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Right. That's it. Thanks.
Other questions, comments?
Great presentation. I think we're excited for you guys to get started.
Us too.
Yeah, let's be sure that we work with Lauren in terms of the cadence that you guys come back. What, sorry?
Okay, yes, we'll get them back. One thing I will say, this is, I mean, the term dog and pony show, this is not a dog and pony show. This is who these people are. They're exciting. They're really, they want to get after it. And we're, as you just mentioned, Mr. Walter, we're excited to have them. Gonna have to work with Amanda a little bit. She's a little shy, but we'll work through that.
Classic people say that. Super shy.
Yeah, but we'll work. Yeah, the plan is to keep coming back.
And I think you can see the theme of data driven is to the extent possible. We'd love to see kind of the empirical data that would say here's the result we have. And I think you had showed the kind of the number of instructional coaches that would be optimal. We're gonna likely be faced with the decision in the not too distant future to say how many more do we need, and certainly that the data will help. The data will help.
Yep.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I'd move we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I would second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. All right, with that, I think we have patron comments. Are there any patron comments? No comments?
Do we want to take a quick recess until the 7 o'clock?
That's in September.
September.
Oh, is it
It's not-
set?
This is just to publish.
This is the publish, it's not the hearing. It's in September.
Oh, the September. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Felton.
Okay. I threw a lot of things out there, and I received more feedback over the weekend and this morning, which is was actually good. It's you're asking questions in advance. I appreciate that. And I hope we got back to everybody. There was quite a few, and so either Rebecca or myself or Audra and others combined to help reply. As just a couple, dates. The R&R tax hearing is September 11th, and it's at 7 o'clock. And as Drew just mentioned, when we get to just a few minutes before 7, take a break. Then you have your R&R hearing, followed by the budget hearing, which is the second thing on my list. Just a reminder, this is, if you remember from last year at the R&R, this is where there's a roll call vote, and that's where every board member has to, publicly vote in knowledge that either we will or won't exceed R&R. So that's how that works. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the budget tonight. I think Drew made a good point earlier this weekend about the JBCC. It's that non-resident enrollment policy that is being developed, and each school district has to have that in place. And that's a legislative action, as you probably know, that is required. And so right now, we're working with Greenbush. Greenbush is putting together the template. I think I shared that with all of you just to take a high-level look at it. We're working out the details, and then we have to sit with each of the buildings on what that means. And then we have to have that adopted before January. That's when it actually goes into effect. So we'll be working on that in September. I'd like to get that all completed no later than October's board meeting. So that's coming up. I've been kind of updating you on United Methodist Church request, and we've asked them to have a little more details on what their goals and priorities are, with possibly using the elementary school one afternoon a week. And then we've been looking at our own building and use funds, and that's part of that process too. And we'll actually, Calesta Blazo has been pretty involved with that as we've been working through that. We've had at least, I think, 3 meetings with United Methodist Church and their representatives, and I'll keep you guys updated. Once again, even if we go down this path, they wouldn't even start until that first Wednesday in October. I mean, they want to get everything lined up also before we would even move forward. We'll talk about negotiations, and I don't know if anybody else, we had Jim Bothwell, Chris Gratton, and Justin Sturgeon help with that process. It was a very productive process. I think both sides were very willing to listen to each other's side as we worked through it. I don't know if anybody, Justin or Chris, Jim, if you guys want to add anything for the board, but it's up for approval tonight. TEA did approve and ratify from their point, or by an overwhelming number of voters. Is there anything else?
You did most of it.
Yeah.
I just would say it was very productive and transparent. I think that we accomplished several things that were important to the district, and I think they accomplished some things that were important to their membership. So I think it's how a negotiation is supposed to work.
Yeah, good discussion. The preliminary number. Now, once again, these are very preliminary, and this is, I keep mentioning, even though we have 110, 12 new students enrolled, that also means we lost students, so that doesn't mean we have that many more new students. It means that those are all new students to the district. I don't know, we will know probably in the next 2 weeks, a better idea who has either transferred or no longer coming to school. And then, of course, on September 20th is when we turn in our official headcount numbers to the state of Kansas, to KSD, and then that's the final, number. I'm projecting growth. I don't know. I think we all are. When you look at these kind of numbers, and the numbers at the elementary are way up, and they're continuing. They're continuing to enroll. And of course, I know what you're all thinking: space, staffing. We're taking that all into account. They're doing a great job of spreading those numbers out. And so right now, we're not we're not really that concerned about having to add a teacher at the last moment. We think we're in a pretty good spot. One thing I will say, and I would just, if you just take a minute here, but Tanya and I have talked a lot about our early childhood. We have so many students and parents that would like for their students to be enrolled in the early childhood program, and it's a goal of ours, a vision of ours at some point to be able to have that program grow. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, we've continued to add staff every year. We've got 5 pre-K teachers, and they each have a morning and an afternoon session, and we still have a waiting list. So it's just something that just continues to grow.
a sizable waiting list of 3 and 4 year olds.
You said people were still enrolling. I guess your communication process for enrollment, is there anything that you would change, like to try to get those people to enroll a little bit earlier so you're not at the last minute having them enroll?
Oh, man.
I get messages about low student lunch balance. I don't know if something like that goes out to parents that says, you haven't enrolled yet, enroll. I don't know if there's a way
Sometimes you don't know who has or hasn't. It's a little,
We can tell.
Gray area.
Our secretaries have the ability to run a report in Skyward that shows who's completed the online enrollment. And when they get a moment, they begin contacting folks on that list if they haven't completed it.
I think there's always room for improvement. I mean, that's just the communication piece that we can all work on, but we really kind of leave it up to each building, you know, I don't know. I was walking through the high school today and there were 2 parents walking around just taking a tour. I don't know. That's just kind of how it's been working. And I know it's a day before a half a day of school, but they're still looking, or I don't know how.
I think it would just help in planning
Yeah.
for your teachers if
Yeah.
they
Oh.
had a better count in the classroom before.
I think it's a good point. I take that. District signage. Had a little bit of feedback on this. Mitch came to me and just talked about really wanting to improve the district-wide signage. I mean, at every building. I mean, we've talked a long time about not having great signage down at the middle school or at the elementary, and all those. But I also get the idea that maybe we need to take I mean, nothing's been ordered. We haven't done anything here, but we probably need to take a deep look at this. And I think that was a good idea. I tried to get a hold of DLR just to see if that was a service that maybe they've already sort of dug into, but I haven't heard back. So, I mean, this is a sizable project. We want to do it right, is I think the whole point.
Can you give us some ideas of just a few things that.
What the signs
Yeah.
pointing out where the middle school is, for example. Where the athletic.
So where the middle school is, like, where would that sign?
It would probably be right along Washington Street. I mean, if you've never been to the school district, what would you be looking for? And that's what we're looking at. Some of it might be real obvious signage, but others is we know that, like, even down at Beatty Field, there's signage we don't have about proper use of the track, or those kinds of things that can be done more professionally. It's just, I think a lot of it is just where are things located, and
There's like a discipline, people that are experts in, effective directional signage and wayfinding and stuff like that. So I think rather than us going, okay, well, we want to sign it, I think you almost need somebody that's removed from the district to have their perspective, to be able to say, okay, here,
this is the best place.
or
for this.
because I think we're almost too familiar with it to be able to, where we'd be in a position to kind of miss.
Yeah.
You almost need somebody who isn't familiar with it to be able to understand where the.
And I think to Kaya's point, some examples that would say, here's some examples of the things that we saw, because I look at $15,000 or $16,000, and that seems like a lot of signs, and it just to help understand what would be some of the things that they would find. That,
Yeah, I think some of it's not only exterior but some interior signage too. So I mean, it's a combination. Yeah, We'll do a lot.
I think
more.
it needs to be a plan. A campaign or whatever the word is, but it needs to be programmed. Maybe that's a better word before it's right.
Right, before we run with it.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
then
think the first
align with
place
our
I would check is
branding
KDOT. See what you can put in the right of way.
Yeah. There's some
One of
truth
the
to
things I had asked about too is numbering the doors on the interior and exterior. Is that
That was
something
part of
that,
it. That was
is
part
that
of
part
it.
of the signage? Because I know for security purposes, a lot of schools are going to
That
make
was
sure
part
every
of it.
door is numbered.
Yeah, a more professional look. That's actually where this started, was numbering the outside doors,
Yeah.
and then it's grown from there. Instead of painting it.
Similar to Chris's comment, there's also planning and zoning. Typically has signage restrictions.
Yep. We'll work on it. It's good. I was at some point, if anybody wants to take a tour or just let us know about taking a look at the CTE classrooms. You saw a couple pictures that Aaron brought. The floors look amazing. You know, where they ground down. I mean, they actually, in some places, look better than they did in the hallways, like between the band room and some of the others. They just turned out wonderful. And the new furniture, the bright lights and everything, and the technologies being upgraded, it is really close to matching, I think, some of the quality in the main part of the high school. And I think we're excited for those students to see, what they're going to have in their classroom, because it doesn't look anything like it did last May. Nothing. And so they're excited. The storage units, once again, some more feedback on that. And once again, these, I think everybody in their mind, they picture the old railroad car kind of thing sitting out there that's got paint and graffiti all over it. These are high quality storage units that have been reconditioned. And actually, Josie and Mitch came to me and said they saw them at DeSoto and Mill Valley, and they were using them, like at their athletic fields behind. I have not.
DeSoto uses them as their
Dugouts.
Yeah. And even in soccer, they have them set up for soccer as well.
So, and they're nice looking. I mean, so the idea is, so they're not eyesores, number one, but they for example, the middle schools would go behind the middle school, and it is primarily to hold a lot of their athletic type equipment, their football dummies, their high jump pits, the hurdles, the fewer hurdles that they do have. Because right now we store a lot of that down in the field house, so it gets shoveled all over the place. And now that the field house is more of a locker room, for soccer, we just can't keep doing that. So it looks like a fairly good fix. The high schools is more maintenance level. So it would probably sit down there where the buses are parked back here, where they used to park buses, and it would hold a lot of the maintenance equipment. We still, a part of the maintenance shop is still being used by the VOAG, even though we're not offering a small engine this year, the plan is to have heavy diesel. They're getting a large diesel engine donated. So anyway, it seems like something we'll look further into. I haven't seen pictures of them, but you definitely nailed it. They're not what you might initially envision. They are pretty high quality. So they are professionally painted. They can be the color we want, all that kind of stuff.
I guess my question would be, what's the alternative?
Probably another building build a building someplace. We just don't have storage. We used to have 2 or 3 storage sheds, remember, behind. Mm-hmm. That's where we just put stuff, and that's all gone. And then we stored a lot of stuff in the field house where the visiting teams would dress.
Yeah.
That's gone. We can't keep the middle school high jump pads in there anymore. They're stacked. I mean, it's just trying to clean up all the spaces. They look very nice. But alternative, if we had another storage shed, I mean, one that wasn't portable.
My main comment on it is, like, there's things that we did and we spent money on that then are causing now a constraint to where we have to spend more money on this. I don't want to. I want us to be in a position to where we can see over the horizon, or see ahead, 2 steps down the road, and say, okay, well, we're doing this field house project, and we want to do that, and we want to make that improvement. However, when we do this, there's stuff in that space that we have to find a new home for, and because of that, really, that field house project is not X dollars; it's X plus.
That's a small piece of it. It really is. That all that stuff that was in the field house, that's not what's filling this up. The maintenance down here, that is simply maintenance. Out at the middle school, it's the shuttling back and forth of equipment. We stored it in the field house, but anytime they wanted to use it, they had to load it on the back of trucks and haul it up to the middle school. So that's part of it. It's not just because of that construction. It really, anyway. I'd love to have a nice maintenance, shed somewhere, and we could store a lot of stuff, but we're not there. We're not there. Superintendent's cabinet, I just mentioned this. This is instead of just having district office staff meetings, we really want to start, using my coordinators as more of a cabinet, and that's internal. I'm working on that. Special ed funding, we all know that how important that is. I really think the Board of Education and the administrators, we need to start visiting, with our local representatives and really talk about, where we're at, with SPED funding. This is not going away. We know that, and so it's important to not just Tonganoxie, but all the schools in the state of Kansas. I want to get my site council back up and running. One thing we did look at, Audra contacted KSB today about the board policy review, and the last time it was done, the school district hired KSB to have it updated. I think it was 2013. And so I would, if we go down that path, I would probably propose that we have them do that. It takes a long time and a lot of effort. So, and then the last thing I have is the Tongi Tailgate is Friday night, and I hope to see everybody there. And if anybody wants to volunteer to roll some hot dogs, let us know, because we could use Kai. Thank you for helping.
I cannot cook. Ask my kids.
But no, anybody, you guys have seen it.
That's not my strength.
You know the drill. We're down there, and we have a large turnout, and I'm just hoping for good weather. So hope it is. It'll be fun. It always is.
Hey, back on that, like the new students, I mean, I know that trend is kind of, we don't know what the net number is. But after we did the bond, we did the little study on population trends and expectations. I mean, it would seem like we want to get that maybe on our radar to redo that, just to kind of see now that we're past this project, so we can, using Drew's words, look over the horizon and keep figuring out, what's going on.
Have we evaluated that to see if that is actually a true?
Well, we probably need our new
representation of-
student numbers. Well,
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, it basically showed us being flat. So
Right.
That was done around
Right,
COVID,
right
so
around-
yeah, there was bad.
I think it skewed it quite a bit.
Well, there's been a lot of different economic things going on. I mean, there's different projects in the city that probably just spill over to us. So
But I think it would be very beneficial to line them up and maybe do one right after the first of the year, and to get new numbers.
Yeah, because I have the spreadsheet where we took building capacities, because the new high school has a low limit and a high limit, depending upon scheduling.
Right.
And just basically, we could even update it based upon the last, because it's probably been several years since that's been updated.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah, and so we could update it to that point and then add the next column over when we get the new data, just to see how that curve is trending.
It had some wonderful demographics in it, but I'm real curious to see the shift of, like, to the north, how much more that has expanded across 2440, up in that area, or if there's been any change to the south. I don't know if there has, but where are all the houses? They're, I think, to the north. Could be wrong.
I think at the end of the day, whether it was perfect last time or not, some level of science around where we think the district's growing and helping plans appropriate. I mean, I don't know how close it was, but it's probably better than we're going to do with a dartboard. So
I think I'll make a contact with that company again. All right, thank you.
Tanya?
All right. I just included in here the back to school dates that we have. We had some fabulous professional development. I can't say enough about the high quality of professional development we had with our staff. It was just great. We had Brandy and her instructional coaches working with the new staff to build rapport with them and to give them some insights on what we're going to be doing this year. And then with our new staff, or our returning staff, we have the high impact instructional practices, and then the PLC Plus training for all staff. It was very beneficial. And then also we had our CKLA training for elementary, that's our new elementary curriculum, the HMH curriculum for middle school and high school in the ELA department, and back to letters again. So we have our cohort 1 group is going into their second year of letters, and then our new staff and 4th and 5th grade teachers are jumping into their letters training, and then we have our new administrators on board who will go through the administrators training for letters. So we have a lot of things going on, and a lot of first days of school, first half day tomorrow for those students in 1st through 6th and 9th grade, and then first full day is the 16th. First day of kindergarten is the 17th, and that's a half day. They have a few half days before they go back full days. And the Tongi tailgate that no one wants to miss. So I'll be out there wrapping hot dogs and encourage everybody to come on out. And Tanya's Topics will be coming back starting on August 25th. And Brandy will have a section in Tanya's Topics also. So we'll have a lot more information coming out to you a couple times a month.
Do you survey after the professional development days? Are you surveying the teachers to get feedback?
We did not after these, but we have in the past, yes.
I think it would be nice to do after every professional development, just so you have a good understanding of what went well, what maybe teachers still needed from that, so then you could move forward with any additional training that needed to be provided.
And we've had some discussion on that with Brandy and the instructional coaches of how we can elicit feedback on those things too. And we've already talked about how we might change things up for next year at the beginning of the school year. Got some different ideas of growth.
Okay. Anything else for Lauren or Tanya? So moving into the action items, action item 5.1, approval of revised 23-24 school calendar. Lauren or Tanya, can you talk to that one just a minute?
Tanya.
Well, we, in the process of negotiations, we were able to add 2 more professional development days. So we have added those to March 18th, which is the Monday after spring break, and then at the end of the school year on May 20th. So it didn't impact students too much except for the March 18th date. And then we'll look at reallocating those for next year, moving those through the calendar where we see that they'd be most appropriate.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the revised calendar?
I make a motion to approve the revised calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 5.2, approval of the negotiated agreement. So I'll say a few words and then we can open up for discussion. So it was my first time participating in the negotiated agreement. I thought the conversations were thought they were productive. I thought they were transparent. I think there was a good mutual understanding of things that were important to the district and things that were important to TEA. We were able, as Lauren mentioned, or Tanya mentioned, that we were able to get 2 additional days for the next school year. We did give a pretty good raise. I can say the number, $2,000 raise to the base, which combined with combining steps 0 through 4 really makes our base salary look much more competitive with neighboring districts. So there were some things that they brought forward that we agreed to table for till some future date, that they weren't things that we were going to go down that path right now. But overall, I think we probably stretched ourselves a little bit in terms of where we've historically been relative to the negotiated agreement. But when you look at the attrition that we've had, I think it was money well spent. So I don't know, comments, questions?
Can I
anything
just
else
say
there?
one thing? I know we just approved the calendar, and this was probably part of your discussion because it's coming later, but I don't understand the benefit of a PD day a day before the last day of school, or the day after the last day of school, because I don't know what you're going to cover at that point. Like, so I would hope in the future that it wouldn't be.
So it was discussed, and the fear was that people had already you know, kind of planned what their days leading up to school were gonna be like, and it would be pretty disruptive to throw that day in there, so, but absolutely, I don't
Absolutely,
think
no.
that's.
We discussed it because if you would have added it somewhere in April, then you're shifting the student.
And that's what I assumed, but
Yeah.
I would like for the following year to definitely
We do
consider
too.
taking that in.
Initially,
putting
we
that-
had planned to add it in August. We had days planned out already, but because we were cutting it so close with negotiations, we could not, in good faith, add a day to the beginning of the school year. So to have the least amount of disruption for parents, students, teachers, everybody, we put it on the end, knowing that we will not leave it there for next year.
And what is your plan now that it is at the end? What is your plan for that day? Like what's
We don't have that set
Yeah,
yet.
I was gonna
Because
say
it's
too.
just approved, we haven't set that yet, but we have a team.
what's your idea? Like what are you gonna do after the school year's over? Like what professional development are teachers going
I
to
would
need
like
that
to
way?
make it something very positive. That's what I talked to Cody and the principals about, is we're going to have to make it something meaningful, because as you said, then why should I be here? And I think that's up to us to make it something that they want to be here for. And,
Okay.
and
I
I haven't got up with the plan yet.
I would think with the instructional coaches, like, we are going to be a lot smarter by then about where
Where
our
the holes
strengths
are.
are and weaknesses are
Yeah.
that might
Yeah.
inform what that might need to be.
Yeah, no, I think that's not a bad point. But it was brought to my attention that you're going to have to work it that last day to make it a meaningful day.
Well, if you have people that are leaving or retiring, they're
Yeah.
probably not gonna participate or want to be there.
I think you're
So-
right. But we're,
And those who are coming for thinking why at the end when I'm ready for summer.
So a lot of the discussion, including the compression of steps, was about the long game. And so while I agree the PD day at the end is not ideal, this wasn't about the 2 days this year. It was about the 2 days
in the
to build
future.
upon. So,
thank you.
do I have a motion to approve item 5.2?
Make a motion to approve item 5.2, the approval of the negotiated agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. All right, item number 5.3, approval to publish the budget. So again, just to be clear, so this is not approving the budget, this is to publish the budget, and we will have a R&R hearing and a budget hearing at the September meeting. Am I saying all that correctly, Lauren?
Yes, you are.
I'd make a few observations around the budget. So, there's 3 scenarios in board docs, that all have the mill levy reduced. The first one is 1.5 mils, the second one's 2, and the third option is 2.5 mils. I would personally encourage us to look at the third option. A couple of things to think about when you look at that Code 99 form. So remember that the final number down there is the budget authority. That's the most we could spend. Historically, we only spend about 90% of that, and the remaining 10% are the cash balances to start the next year. Because of the way the various mill levies are calculated, we will most likely not be revenue neutral. But in terms of total budget authority, we are actually less than we were last year. So total budget authority this year was 38.6 million, and last year it was 38.73 million. So the total budget authority is actually less year over year. We are in an inflationary environment. I think when Lauren and team built the budget, most things were 5 to 10% depending.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just talked about an improved teacher raises, that factors into it. We did burn down cash balances significantly this last year. So historically, we've averaged in the upper 16s to upper 17% cash balance as a percentage of expenditures. As of July 1st, we were at 11%. 11's probably about the bottom of where we want to be. So, when we talked with them this morning, they said somewhere in that 11 to 15 is kind of where you want to be. So cash balances are down considerably. We're primarily looking at the that reduction is going to come out of the bond and interest component of the mill levy. We have talked with our bond bankers, and they feel pretty comfortable with where we're at. Obviously, it's a pretty sensitive math problem, depending on what valuations do. If valuations were to go flat, really, the difference between a 1% growth in valuation and 2% is very significant. So it's a very sensitive calculation, but they feel pretty comfortable. You know, we talked about really looking at other places to tighten the belt, and that's something Lauren and I are going to dig into heavily. You know, we do have remaining construction funds. While there are projects to do, if we reduce the mill, we probably need to save a fair bit of that to, you know, for a rainy day in case the valuations do go down. And I just think, you know, from my own editorial, I think that throughout this process, we've been highly focused on balancing the needs of public education with those of our taxpayers, and it's something that I don't personally take lightly, and I think that everyone that's been involved in the process has taken that seriously as well. So that's my narrative. I would suggest we look at option 3, which is a 2.5 mil reduction, but open to discussion.
I mean, I've been involved with this with Justin as well the last few years. I mean, a lot of it is out of the bond and interest fund. With the project done, we know where we're at, we know what values are. And I think we can be fairly aggressive in that area. We kind of pushed our people to look at that. I mean, LOB and capital, we get state weighting and some money there. So, you know, when we lower it here, it has kind of a multiplier effect on terms of the budget. But the bond fund has got a lot of capacity. I mean, we have to keep a certain amount in there because we got to meet our debt payments. But I mean, if you just look at us compared to any other school, it's our debt level that's the reason we have such a high tax rate in this district. So, and I don't really, with the rate of those bonds, I don't really think it's wise to hold our mill up and accumulate cash to look at prepayments, because we can't even prepay some of those until another 3 or 4 years, if I remember right. So, I mean, I think people would like to enjoy that mill levy reduction now rather than later. So I'm pretty comfortable, like Justin, with that option 3 with the 2.5 mil levy adjustment reduction.
Questions, comments?
I like the fact that we did different options, and we really dug into it, did the analysis with our partners, you know, with the bond and stuff. So we haven't done it that frequently, and I think it's really good to be transparent that we've looked at a number of different options and different levels of how aggressive we're going to look at, you know, the mill levy.
Any other comments or questions? I would move that we approve, we publish option 3 as posted to board docs with a 2.5 mil reduction at 59.848 mils.
I second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Item 5.4, we are going to talk about that later. Item 5.5. Lauren, do you want to hit on that one quick?
And what do we got?
The accounting and
activity
Yes,
funds.
okay, so yes, Rebecca, would you want to come on up here for, or you can, just so, no.
Did you know that you would be coming out here?
You're not going to sit there. No, so Rebecca replied to Drew's question today. Was that satisfactory?
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
Yes, the document's not changed for the last couple of years, other than we're just updating it for the new school year.
Yeah, my biggest concern is I don't know how consistently we've been, you know, following that. So I like the policy. I think it was done for the right reasons. I think that it's just implementation and enforcement, and maybe even just an education, because we do have a lot of new folks and educating folks on that thing.
And
So
that's kind of what I talked about with you. I think that was why Cody was brought in so heavily on that conversation, because most of that happens at the high school level and it's done in the building. So he's had conversations with his coaches and staff about how that practice needs to work.
yeah, and because I see, like, go to football's getting ready to start, and there's going to be the fundraising there, and oftentimes I've just been curious about what is the fundraising for and what are we trying to buy. Partly because sometimes I'm like, well, why isn't the school district doing that? Why are we needing to do fundraising? And it hasn't been consistent with the level of information that's available. And I think for somebody that is donating to it or has donated to it in the past, having the understanding of where is this money going, what's it being used for, why is it not something that's in the normal budget to just do, because I'm paying a lot of athletic fees for my kids, and so I'm like, well, so I think that's part of that implementation is from a parent perspective.
Yeah, got it.
There's some CASA rules around that too, and the policy kind of
Absolutely.
mirrors the CASA
Yes.
requirements, so that's,
It's definitely been brought to the attention of all of our administrators there.
And where is that information provided at? Like, if,
They're updating all their handbooks. That's where you.
but say like if I'm a parent or not a parent.
Not
I
a
just
parent?
Not a parent, but I donated to the soccer fundraising. Where can I go to see like how much money did they raise? What was it used for? Those kinds of things.
That's
like,
probably.
is there,
I never thought of it that way, but I don't think we really probably have a method for that to see what was raised. But I think
to me, there should be like a list of expectations that every coach, if they're going to do fundraising, is required to either demonstrate where the money went to. Like,
I think it comes from it channels within
Back to
like
the school.
24 hours into
Back into an account at the whatever building it is, one of their building level accounts.
we could
and the
tell you how much
bookkeeper
was deposited.
at that building will handle those funds.
and then there's records of what it was,
So, yeah, she'll-
but then the payments out of those funds come from the building.
Right, so the
too.
bookkeeper would then do a deposit into the bank, which there would be an entry for that in her accounting, and then any purchases they make would come out of that same fund, and she would have accounting
so
for that.
those purchases, there's not any like regulations, not the right word, but like expectation or like they can use it for anything that they want, or is there like a
It's a request. The request has to be made through, like say, a coach to the administrator and then on to Rebecca.
like this is a bad example, but they raise money and the coaches want to have a dinner to congratulate their great season. Is that something that's acceptable, or does it have to be to purchase gear for the kids, or
So that's where the fundraising part is a little bit different. They have a little bit more leniency with that because it's not actually tax dollars.
right?
So they have a little more,
Then, so then my thought is like when we're asking as a school district under the name of the Tonganoxie School District, there should be some expectations or some type of communication that goes out when they're fundraising that this is what our fundraising is for. Like we are fundraising for new athletic gear and
Right.
whatever it might be. So then at least it's communicated, so people are aware of what they're
Yeah, some checks and
donating to.
balances. So like when during the fundraising, this is communicating what it's for, and then there's some confirmation that that's actually what it did go for.
right?
And then, once again, it was mentioned that there are CASA guidelines that we have to follow on that too. And like awards, for example, you just can't, there's a limit. And so, yeah,
And
but
all-
I know where
and
you're coming
all
from.
the coaches and activities director,
Yeah.
activities, people in charge of activities have been educated about all that, and they were all aware
It was
of those.
already discussed, yes. I know it was
Okay.
this year, yeah. But maybe not to the dead of making a public announcement like what it's for. I just have to check into what the narrative was at the meetings with the parents.
I will say it does seem kind of overwhelming at times when I'm paying an athletic fee, and then I'm also every time my kid's in a sport, not every time, but many times, we're also asked to then do fundraising or any activity to the school. They're doing fundraising, and then I don't see any, not always, but many times I don't see any benefit for my child. Like, I helped do fundraising for something, but there wasn't a direct relationship coming back for my own child. Like, I had to, does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, no, I got you.
And it's not necessarily sports, but maybe in some of the other activities where you do a lot of fundraising and things go towards maybe a smaller group of students, not the whole group. And so then it's probably not as.
Okay.
Got you. I got you. I got it.
Is there a motion to approve item 5.5?
I make a motion to approve item 5.5.
Is there a second?
A second?
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We do have an executive session. I think maybe Jim was gonna make a motion there. And could we do a 5-minute bio break on the front end of that too?
You're the boss. You can call break wherever you want. After recess, I guess I'd move what time is it? You just wanted 20 till?
Yep.
Yeah. Meet, executive session at 20 till for 10 minutes. Invite Lauren in to discuss the matter affecting a student.
Second.
How about call the roll over there? Get out of habit.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right. The only thing I had, everybody on the board signed a board resolution that will go to Janet Klaczynski, the county clerk, tomorrow. On the November ballot, there'll be a measure to move USD 464 to an all at-large, basically eliminate the voting districts. We've talked about it in public meetings several times and approved it, but everyone signed it today, and really the thought process was just to drive the best possible candidates to the board. You know, currently we've got no one's filed for one of the seats, and no one's run against me 2 times in a row, and I think there's an opportunity to recruit the best possible candidates for the district. So that'll go to Janet Klaczynski tomorrow. Any other announcements? We'll adjourn.